If you've been watching my videos, you've probably noticed that I'm not a native English speaker. My accent gives it away. But that hasn't stopped me from learning, and it shouldn't stop you either. We all have our unique journeys with English, and one of the most common struggles in English learning is understanding the language well but not being able to speak it fluently. In this video, I want to talk about why that happens. And first, I want to cover two key concepts. After that, I'll share some practical tips that have helped me personally improve my English speaking skills. Conscious learning versus unconscious learning. Let's start by talking about conscious learning and unconscious learning. These two concepts are the heart of why you might understand English but still struggle with speaking. Conscious learning is the kind of learning we do actively. It's what happens when you sit down with a grammar book or something like this, and when you memorize vocabulary, or when you're studying for an exam, for example. It's structured, organized, and yes, it's important. You need it to build your foundation in the language. But then there's unconscious learning. This is when your brain absorbs language without you even realizing it. When you're listening to English music or watching movies or just overhearing conversations. Unconscious learning is more about immersion, and it's just as crucial for speaking fluently. It's not something that can be taught directly because it's about letting your brain soak up the language in a natural way. This is how children learn their first language. The problem is, most of us focus so much on conscious learning that we forget how important unconscious learning is. We worry about rules, about the structure, and making everything perfect, but real fluency comes when you let go of that need for perfection and allow yourself to learn by doing, by speaking, by making mistakes, and learning from those mistakes. Passive learning versus active learning. Passive learning includes things like reading textbooks or watching English lessons on YouTube or listening to English podcasts. It's when you're absorbing information but not directly using it. Passive learning is helpful for building knowledge, but on its own, it's not enough. If you really want to speak fluently, you need active learning, and that means output, practicing your writing, practicing your speaking, and even thinking in English. Active learning is when you take what you've learned and start using it. This can be as simple as writing in a journal, typing out social media posts in English, or recording your voice where you talk about your day, for example. The key here is that you're producing language, not just absorbing it. When you engage in active learning, you're not just memorizing words or grammar rules, you're training your brain to recall those words and structures quickly and use them in real life situations. Speaking fluently requires this kind of mental exercise. And here are my tips. 1. The power of reading. Now, I know a lot of people think that to speak well, you just need to practice speaking. While that's true, I believe that reading, especially novels, is an incredibly powerful tool for improving fluency. I know it may sound strange. After all, how can reading help you speak? Here's the thing. When you read novels, you're not just reading words, you're absorbing the flow of the language, the natural sentence structures, and the way ideas are expressed in English. Reading helps you internalize these patterns without even realizing it. It enriches your vocabulary and shows you how native speakers express themselves. So don't underestimate the power of a good book. Pick up a novel in English and you'll be surprised at how much it improves not only your understanding but also your speaking ability. Matilda by Roald Dahl was my favorite book when I was a teenager, and I read it at least 10 times back then, but in my first language. When I decided to start reading novels in English, I knew I had to begin with Matilda again. It felt like coming full circle, and from that point on, reading novels in English became one of my favorite hobbies. And now, whenever I have free time, I love diving into a good book in English, and it's not only enjoyable but also a great way to improve my language skills. 2. Take online classes on topic that interest you. Another great way to practice speaking is by taking online classes in areas you're passionate about. There are so many platforms like Coursera that offer free professional classes in a wide range, for example, art, history, humanities, science, you name it. These courses are not only a great way to learn something, but also an excellent opportunity to practice your English. Most courses come with video lectures, reading materials, and assignments that encourage you to think and write in English. You can also participate in discussions, which gives you the chance to practice speaking. Plus, you'll be learning something new that genuinely interests you. So you won't even feel like it's work. 3. Don't be shy. Proud of yourself. Another thing that holds many of us back from speaking fluently is fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of being judged, fear of not sounding perfect, fear of speaking. But let me tell you, being afraid of making mistakes is the worst enemy of language learning. You should be proud of yourself for taking the time and effort to learn a new language. It's not easy and it's a big accomplishment. Don't worry about what people think. Don't let their opinion hold you back. You're doing something amazing, and that's all that matter. And mistakes? They're a part of the process. I make mistakes all the time. Sometimes I use the wrong word or mess up the sentence structure. Sometimes my pronunciation is off. But you know what? Even native speakers make mistakes in their own language. Think about the time you've said something funny in your own language. It happens and it's normal. No one is perfect. So the next time you hesitate to speak because you're afraid of making a mistake, remind yourself that it's natural. Mistakes are a part of learning, and the more you make them, the more you learn. 4. Start writing. It helps more than you think. Now, let's talk about another tip that might seem unrelated to speaking but is actually really helpful. Writing. Writing in English can help you organize your thoughts and get comfortable with the language. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can start by writing down your plans for day, for example, or journaling your thoughts, or even writing Instagram captions. You can also challenge yourself by writing short stories. It doesn't have to be perfect, and no one has to read it. But the act of writing helps you think in English, and over time, this will naturally translate into better speaking skills. You'll find that the more you write, the more confident you'll become in expressing yourself. 5. Speak with native speakers. Of course, one of the best ways to improve your speaking skills is to actually speak with native speakers. I know that might sound intimidating, but thanks to technology, it's easier than ever. There are plenty of apps that allow you to connect with native English speakers. Apps like Clubhouse, Busuu, or even language exchange platforms like Tandem. The key here is to make sure you're getting feedback either from a qualified teacher either from a qualified teacher or a native speaker who can correct you in real time. So, to wrap it all up, speaking English fluently is about more than just studying grammar or memorizing vocabulary. It's about balancing conscious learning with unconscious learning and passive learning with active learning. And embracing the power of reading, not being afraid to make mistakes, and finding ways to practice speaking, whether that's through writing, speaking with native speakers, or taking online classes. And most importantly, be kind to yourself. Learning a language takes time, and everyone's journey is different. The fact that you're here trying to improve already shows how dedicated and capable you are. So keep going, keep learning, and don't give up. You got this.